So thank you so much, guys, for taking the time and accepting to speak on our panel. I'll let you guys first introduce yourselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bam Mazika from Munich Re. Part of the team leading the efforts out here in Silicon Valley. Been here for 2 years. Previously came from our U.S. P&C reinsurance operation in New Jersey. So it's a little bit different world out here, which I thoroughly enjoyed to be part of Plug and Play.
Hello, everyone. Tim Attia, CEO of Slice, on-demand insurance for the on-demand economy. Prior to Slice, I spent 6 years distributing insurance online to small commercial, and part of that, building back-end systems for carriers.
Hi, everyone. Jake Rothfuss from Farmers Insurance, and I lead our commercial property, liability, and motor businesses for the company.
By the way, they had a microphone. Does the microphones work? Yeah. Okay, so we love to. The idea of this panel was to talk a little bit about the best practices between the startup corporate engagement. One of the good examples could be Plug and Play. We're all about building these ecosystems of startups, corporates, VCs, and anyone who could bring some value to that startup ecosystem. So I'd love to know what kind of experience have you guys had as our founding partners and one of the startups that we had in the program. So Bob, would you like to start?
Sure. As you may have heard, I've been out here, actually I'm part of Plug and Play for over 2 years now, but that was long before even the Insurtech space. Recognizing that the dramatic changes that are taking place in Insurtech and the rapidly growing interest in it. We talked to Plug and Play about starting this accelerator program, and I have to say I'm surprised but not shocked of how well this has really developed. Plug and Play has been a great partner. They really listened to a lot of our interest areas that we wanted to focus on and really did a great job of finding those companies for this first batch. And I can't say enough that this is really exciting times for our industry right now.
Thank you. Tim, what are your thoughts as a startup?
Yeah, from a startup perspective, at least our perspective, being part of the ecosystem or being part of the insurance industry is very important, particularly as we get to the scaling phase. I mean, we can innovate. We have some challenges around scaling. So the ability to have access to a lot of carriers, a lot of different carriers, a lot of global carriers, has sort of been critical to our development.
Yeah, and I think I would second what both of these gentlemen said. So really for us, it's just the breadth of the companies that's out there is phenomenal, the variation in ideas, and really as well as just the access. So and Plug and Play has been great at tailoring this program to our needs and to what we're most interested in and the biggest problems that we've got out there. So much appreciated.
That's so kind of all you guys. But also, I want to know more about what are the best practices between the startups and the corporates. What should the startups know in terms of engaging with the corporates, and what are the corporates doing wrong and they could improve on doing better in terms of engaging with them?
Sure. I'll kind of lead it off. I mean, the one thing that we really, one of the lessons learned or talking to startups for so long now is quickly getting to what is the value. If you're talking about new data, is that going to really swing our loss ratio at the end of the day? What type of points are we going to reduce on our expenses? Is there, where's their true value proposition rather than just giving us the idea? So what really works for us is truly that collaborative conversation. You really have to sit with them. So I often give advice to other corporates. You're not going to just, the startups aren't just going to always give you this solution on a silver platter. You're going to plug it in and make millions of dollars. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to collaborate with them. They're learning about the insurance. Tim knows a lot more about the insurance, but others learning more about the insurance industry. What is our pain points and issues? And they're willing to adjust or pivot to adapt to us. But it has to be more of that open collaborative, quickly get into the solution, quickly for us finding the right group in our large organization that we can quickly do a pilot project or a proof of concept to get things moving fast.
Tim, you have a good perspective both on the corporate side and the startup side. What do you think?
From a startup perspective, it does take a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy, and startups have limited amount of time to engage with corporates. Corporates are very big. We have investments from 2 corporates, but so one of the things that the startups have to. It's nice that we get to see them all here, but you have to very quickly decide which ones are the ones you want to work with, which ones you think you can provide value to. I think that's key, is being able to sort of prioritize and pick the right partners. Yeah.
Jacob?
Yeah, so again, I would say from my perspective and from our team's perspective, it is really about being very disciplined around what are the problems you're trying to solve, and making sure that we're asking the right questions of the startups, and the startups are also asking us those same questions. Like the problems that we have may not be exactly the problems you all are attempting to solve, but if you ask us more questions, you'll get to those root causes, those root issues, and you'll be able to probably help us solve that underlying issue. The other piece of advice I'd give in terms of do's and don'ts from our first initial round with Plug and Play has really been, you got to talk in our language from a carrier perspective. Right, so knowing our business, knowing what are some of those pain points, knowing those items is critically important. So sometimes our imagination isn't as broad as you might think. So we need to understand how you would fit inside our model.
And looking at it as a broader perspective, what could the industry do, and even like players such as Plug and Play or other players who are in the industry, to facilitate these kind of engagements? What kind of roles should be opened up, and what kind of practices should be done to make this whole engagement of Insurtech in general a little bit better?
One of the things, like when I talk about collaboration, there has to be more conversation. I mean, when I talk to many startups, especially in the Insurtech value chain, I often hear time and time again 2 main hurdles. They are legacy systems, regulation. Us as long industry experts, we kind of think that's just set in stone, and we have to find ways to get over those hurdles. Changes are coming. They're definitely coming, and it's going to be the most successful corporates are the ones that are going to be able to execute the fastest. And that's part of us as a reinsurer. We want to be the leader in this innovation effort. We want to work with our clients. We want to help our clients progress in this new world that's going to be changing. So we're really hoping to be the full round solution provider for our clients as well.
Tim, what do you think is missing?
Well, I don't want to completely take the gloves off, but I think I'm going to talk from a startup perspective. Obviously, working with the incumbent carriers is very important. Obviously, the incumbent carriers can just stop you in your tracks. There'll be a lot of reasons why you can't do it, why we can't speak the language. Maybe there's a different language. So you have to be very careful, because working with carriers could actually end your startup, depending on who you work with. But I think there's a model, right? We get to innovate. You saw all the startups today. Everybody gets to innovate with a blank sheet of paper. That's what we get to do in a very, very capital efficient manner, which is very different for a carrier to do. I think carriers, what's required is some kind of model. Once everybody graduates, how are we going to take this and scale it? How are we going to bring it to market, I think, is sort of missing. We can have the conversations, we can innovate, whether we innovate or the carriers innovate internally, but then what? I think that would be an interesting sort of next step.
Jacob?
Yeah, and for the carriers, the advice I would give is you absolutely have to be very disciplined about the approach you take in a setting such as Plug and Play and around Insurtech in general. Know what you're trying to solve for, and then seek out those firms. But when you seek out those firms, understand that they're doing the same thing that you're doing. They're looking for business opportunities. And so you need to decide relatively quickly whether it's an idea that's worth pursuing and progressing forward, or whether it's an idea that is great, but it's just not for you right now. So either move ahead or kill and move on to something else. But try to do that as quickly as possible. And the second piece of advice, certainly from a carrier perspective to startups, would be think about how you can help the organization move through some of those legacy challenges to get to a proof of concept, to get to some sort of MVP type solution. For many carriers, that seems like a daunting task because of those legacy systems, but there are ways around that. So helping the carriers figure out and solve for that to get a pilot done is in everybody's best interest.
I think that's a key point. You know, talking to many of our partners and so on, we're always you hear the language, work on the big things. But necessarily big things don't come out of the blue right away. It's working on even just identifying an area to do a pilot, even a proof of concept to start the ball rolling. Sometimes the first step is actually the hardest step. And we constantly preach in our company, execution, execution, execution. Because I don't think there's not a shortage of ideas even within our company, but we're constantly working on execution. And just sometimes starting out is the key thing. Because you know, the next big disruptor is probably not in front of our face. It's incremental steps towards that. So you have, like Nike, just do it. Just start.
Yep, absolutely.
And one thing that I want to add here is that one of the most beautiful things that we've seen here, and based on the feedback that we got from our partners, is that this kind of corporates talking to corporates. We've had many of the tier 1 companies tell us, yeah, the competition is 1 block away. Could you please introduce them to us, even though we're right next to each other? And we want to see what we could do to improve on this and aggregate the experience that different companies had when it came to the innovation in terms of building a venture arm, in terms of building an innovation lab, and somehow try to apply this model to different carriers. And that's why if any of you guys feel like you want to contribute to this, please let us know. We'll be happy to look at this together and create some kind of best practices and sharing the experiences and with open discussion. So one last thing, if you guys wanted to do one advice for the carrier, one advice for startup, and one advice for plug and play, what would that be?
We'll start at that end this time.
Let's see. So one advice for carriers again is you need to have, in my opinion, you need to have that central point of contact, whether it's that venture arm, that innovation lab, something like that, where you can funnel all of these great business models through it and run them through your development cycle. I think that's critically important for all parties. Advice for the startups is don't become too easily frustrated. You will hear terms that you might not like information security review, legal, regulatory compliance, concerns and reviews. Don't be discouraged by those things. That is the business that we are in, but they can all be overcome, but you have to be patient at times. And for plug and play, I would say, besides keep doing what we're doing here, I would say that more settings, particularly if you look at the interest in this room around Insurtech, I think there's an opportunity to do even more sessions and maybe smaller settings or longer pitch sessions with some of the firms so that all the carriers and the companies involved in the space have an opportunity to really be heard and see who's out there. So.
Tim?
So I'm more bullish. So I don't actually like the pilot word, but I think for the startups is you just go and do it. Go do it on your own. If you do it encumbered by the current industry, you probably won't get there. But if it works and you're successful, I think that's where the industry comes to play. And I think for the carriers, I think you have to acknowledge that the startups have the capability to innovate, and it is really difficult to innovate within your shops, even with labs, so forth. It's really difficult. So I think some kind of relationship that lets the startups go, and not just pilot, just go and see it with a new model whether they're going to be successful. But if it is successful, help them to scale is sort of a more interesting model. For plug and play, some more notice when we have meetings. A lot of great meetings, but yeah, it's yeah.
Okay. Bob?
I guess for the carriers, for our industry, is you really need to find, if you find a technology, you really need to find a champion in your organization to drive it. You can be the best innovation center or a scout or whatever you want to call it out here, but if you don't find somebody in the organization that's really going to champion this technology, because if you go to a business unit and it's priority number 2 or 3, it's going to be a tough road, and it's going to be a very tough road for the startups. You need somebody 100% focused on that's really going to champion it and moving it forward. And however you organize your organization with innovation centers and so on, you definitely need that champion. I'll just leave that one advice. For the startups, it's, I don't want to use the word patience, but some of our organizations are very large. And my job is to find the right spot in that company, to find that champion that's going to take that and move the fastest. We're a global company across this globe, many different units, many different on their life insurance, health insurance, and P&C insurance. I want to find the best partner for them to move that forward the quickest. That may just take a little work in finding that right champion. For plug and play, since pretty much started with you from the beginning, I pitched the idea to you, and to me, sitting in this building, I can't ask for anything more since it's working out well.
Of course, you're players. You're part of Play and Play now.
Yeah.
So just so that you guys know why these companies were chosen for the panel, I just want to do a quick shout out. We've seen a lot of corporates engage with startups, but these corporates here, Munich Re is definitely, I think no one could beat Munich Re in terms of how many partnerships they have. When it comes to providing capital or even partnering on distribution. Farmers has been one of the ones that picked up really fast. We've had a lot of serious commitment from them. We had a lot of high-level executives coming in for a deal flow. All-day deal flow is they pick a session, they pick a theme, they come in, they meet great startups, and then go do pilots. And that's one of the things that we love about Farmers. And then Tim, it's one of the startups that, we talk to a lot of startups across different industries. Some come with a lot of expectations. Some come with no idea of what they're doing, but definitely Slice is one of those companies that they know out of a deal flow what they want, how to take it, and how to do the follow-up. And I think they're one of the greatest examples of where the Insurtech on the startup side and the corporate side meet. So thank you all for participating, but we love to take the discussion a little bit to the audience, see if anyone has any questions. We still have time for 1 or 2 more questions. So if someone wants to raise their hand, we'll pass the microphone. Really? No questions, guys? Do you want me to ask more questions?
Back in the back.
Could someone get a microphone over there? Oh, there's one over there.
Hi. I just wanted to mention that the insurance regulatory world, the insurance commissioners and so forth, are really, really interested. I just came back from Florida for the fall annual meeting for NAIC, National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and they had an afternoon session on Insurtech, and they really want you to come and talk to them about what's happening with your company. So if you think you have regulatory issues, or even, especially if you think you don't, it's probably worth making a few calls and getting in front of the insurance regulators, because they're very interested and they want to be very supportive of what's happening in Insurtech.
No, yeah, this is, we agree. We attended that conference and probably spent too much money on lawyers, but I do recommend that the startups spend time with the regulators and NAIC, and it's definitely a very important thing. The regulators want to learn, and it can become a strategic advantage.
Someone over there was first.
Sorry. All right. My question was just, before you joined with Plug and Play, did you already have a very well-established innovation lab, venture arm, and so on, and this was just the next step for you? Or did you join Plug and Play to kind of map that out and make some new steps in your organization?
I will. I'll start out, probably because it's a little bit unique. Believe it or not, this was, we always been somewhat of innovation, but we knew we had to step it up. One of our first steps was really to send 2 people out of here from the business units. I kind of define ours as across our company as this shotgun approach, many different parts of our company working on innovation teams and so on, and pulling that together. But I often look at it, was a Lewis and Clark expedition in the beginning, and when we came out here, we found Plug and Play. It was a great Silicon Valley in a box here for us to start. We talked to all people all across the Silicon Valley, but a lot of it's here. But it was one of our first steps. We even said, will we stay here long term? And the answer was quickly yes. You see the latest trends, you're calibrating the different startups, it gives us that ability. But to answer your question, no, it wasn't, I call that little incremental steps along the way and well mapped out. For us, it was a little bit different and it paid off.
And for Farmers, innovation is a space that we've invested in for some time, and we've had a leader of an innovation team for many years now. And so Plug and Play, though, is a very big part of our innovation strategy going forward, and it is really, I would say, one of the most, if not the most productive relationship we have in this space in terms of scouting new ideas and new companies.
And just to add to that, many of our partners don't actually have established innovation lab or venture arm. Farmers and Munich Re are definitely one of the ones that have been doing this for a little bit longer. USAA is another great example, but a lot of other insurance companies just starting to do it, and we try to help any way that we can. Not that we could do much, but there's definitely a lot of experience from the other best practices that we've seen across other industries to, share with those partners. One last question.
Thank you. Excuse me. What are some key areas of interest in the insurance world that you're looking for technology innovation?
Well, let's see. I think the ones that probably most of us are looking for are really around, how will you mitigate losses? How will you learn more about your customer? Right? How will you delight that customer in a way that others can't and gain some form of advantage through that doesn't take pricing? So, how do you create a better claims experience? I think if you look at the breadth of the startups that are out there, it's in those areas, along with how do you create that experience for an agent or for an end customer. So.
We're Munich Re, life, health, property and casualty. I can probably talk to you a while about all the different interest areas. But a large part, I'll just put in a broad category, emerging risks. The world's changing with the sharing economy, shifts in liability. We need to be well aware of our future, and we want to be the experts in those shifting liabilities, where autonomous vehicles, are we going to be insuring people, or cars, car manufacturers, or software companies. These are the product innovation, I think, is one of the key points around technology.
All right, thank you so much, guys, and please let's have the break.